Hi everyone, I'm Joanna Penn from thecreativepenn.com and today I'm here with Alexis Grant. Hi Lexi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh no, it's great to have you on the show. And just as an introduction, and Lexi has been on before, but for those people who don't know her, Alexis is an entrepreneurial writer and digital strategist, helping you create the life you want to live. And you might know one of her sites, which is The Right Life, which focuses on helping writers create, connect, and earn, which is important to all of us. Now, just as a second introduction, I'm celebrating my 200th podcast episode.
Wow,
Yeah, it's
that's
quite,
awesome.
I know, it's kind of crazy. And, I wanted to have you, Lexi, on the show to talk about things like moving on and what we've learned, because you're actually one of the, it wouldn't have been like the first person I met online, but the first person who I met online that I'm still connected with.
That's awesome. You're very privileged.
Yeah, so, and I was thinking, I think it was Twitter. We met on Twitter, right?
Yeah, we did, yep.
Yeah, when we were both really new on Twitter, we probably had like 10 followers each or something.
It was lucky that we connected then.
Yeah, lucky, or the universe, whatever you want to call it. But let's kind of go back a bit and talk a bit about where we were then and where we are now. So, for example, I didn't even consider writing fiction then, and I've just finished. I've got it here. I'll show you. Just printed out my 6th novel.
Yes.
So
That's awesome.
I just finished it today. So, I mean, my life's really changed. My business model's changed. Tell us about your journey from when we met like 5 years ago on Twitter. Where were you then and where are you now?
Sure. I think we met when I was still working at my day job.
Yeah.
I was working as a reporter. I was covering the job market, and I had my business on the side. So I was doing a little bit of work with other small businesses, helping them with social media. But I ended up leaving that day job to pursue that full time. And yeah, my business has changed a lot since then. For one, I kind of started out as more as a freelancer, and now I am a bit more of kind of a manager. I oversee a small business. I have a team of 10, a lot of writers and editors who help me do the work for our clients. So that's changed in terms of the scale of the business and my role in it. And I guess I would say that's the main thing, the major thing. I still do a lot of my own writing and creative stuff like I did when we first met. But yeah, I'd say that's the biggest piece.
Because I think we actually both left our day jobs within a month of each other too, right?
Yeah, which was great. So it's been fun to watch you do so well and get to where you are now.
Yeah, and you too. And I mean, this is a very big thing. So let's start with this stickability and kind of carrying on and not giving up. I mean, both of us use our same. I mean, I had the Creative Pen. You started with Alexis Grant, which was the traveling writer at the beginning. Right? We've used the same site. We've continued blogging. We've continued social media. We've continued content marketing. Why are we still here when many of the others we started with have not continued?
I mean, I think it is a lot about persistence and being able to push through when it's not easy. I guess I would say entrepreneurship isn't for everybody. So I think a lot of people just realize it's not for them. They maybe don't have the appetite for risk and feeling like it's a little bit riskier than a day job, especially when you're first starting out. I would argue that in some ways I think it's safer than having all your eggs in one basket. But when you're first starting out, it's really difficult to make that transition in your head sometimes. So I think there's other things like that have just kind of pushed other people who may have wanted to do something similar in a different direction. I've seen a few of my friends actually who were self-employed a few years ago and were trying the freelance thing, decide to go work for an employer because they just, the whole idea of owning your own schedule and setting your own priorities, it's really hard when you're first starting. And I think it takes I would say even a year to kind of get to a point where, okay, I know what I'm going to do with my day. I know what I'm doing with my month. I can plan things out and realistically do what I've planned. But it's not easy at the beginning.
No, and I've done like yearly reflection on my, how it's been this year as an author entrepreneur. And year one, I wrote that. I actually had to get an office somewhere else. I go to the London Library because of the commute. It was going to on the commute and getting out the house and leave and having a scheduled leaving time when my husband was leaving as well, and having a coffee in a shop and meeting people. There's all these things that once you ingrained in a corporate way of living, once you stop doing that, you're just like, what am I meant to do with myself? And you're right, I think it takes a year. And that was my most wobbly time, I think. It was almost the psychology of being out on my own and working alone a lot of the time, like we do as internet entrepreneurs. It's like, it was quite scary. So were there any times that you had a wobbly moment?
Oh, of course. I mean, I had a wobbly moment 2 days ago. So it still happens. And I mean, I can give you an example. So the way my business works is we serve a number of clients. We have about 10 clients at any given time. And most of them we keep for months on end. Because we're basically helping them with blog management. So it's a recurring model. Like, it makes sense for us to work with the same clients again and again and again, month after month. And we just lost a client, and it was actually our lowest revenue client, who I've known for the last few years that in my head, like from a revenue standpoint, it doesn't really even make sense to have that client, but I just hadn't been able to take the step towards dropping the client because I really liked working with them. And I'd worked with this client for 4 years. So anyways, 2 days ago, this client ended the contract, just in terms of like, I think they've cutting expenses or whatever, it happens. And I had this moment, like, you just feel a little panic, like, oh my God, I've lost a client. And the truth is, the revenue was not, it really wasn't a big deal. It was probably a blessing in disguise in a lot of ways. But even now, you still have that kind of moment of panic. And I think it's partly because of how society is. We've let society train us to feel that panic, when really, like, if you look at it logically, like, there's no reason to be, feeling anxiety and stress over that. But my point is, I think it is most difficult during the first year, but then you're always going to have self-doubt. You're always going to wonder if you're doing the right thing with your day. You're always going to need someone else to kind of lean on in certain situations, and that's just normal.
And then what about working hours? I get asked all the time, what is like your work-life balance and stuff? And to be fair, I don't think that you need balance if you're doing what you love. So I had balance when I worked at a day job and then came home and did my writing. Now I do this pretty much all the time. I'm doing something related to writing or, the business or meeting people, and even my trips with my husband, I'm always thinking about how I could use that in my writing. And so I definitely do not have balance, and I love it. So I wonder about you, how do you manage that?
Well, in terms of a daily schedule, I don't work a 9 to 5 schedule. I like to get up and do an hour or two of work and then go to the gym or go out for a bike ride. Like this morning, for example, it's really nice out. We know it's one of the last warm days. So my husband and I went bike riding for 2 hours from like 9 to 11. And I just took a shower and sat down here with you. So I'm getting a late start on my day, but I know that the next, say, 6 hours are going to be really productive. And if I want to work until 8, I can. So I would say I often work a little bit later into the day than most people who work 40 hours a week. And some people mistake that and think that I'm working a lot. But the truth is, it's because I did other things in the middle of the day. And I really like having that flexibility. I do think it's hard to turn off. And I would say I struggle with balance in that respect. But I make a conscious effort to do it. Like, this morning I felt like there were things I should be doing for work, but I kind of forced myself to go on the bike ride. And as soon as we were out there, I really enjoyed it. And I think it did me good.
Yeah, and didn't I read, because I got rid of the email on my phone like a year ago. Haven't you done that too?
I have. I did in the last couple of months. And it was cool to see that you had done that as well. I still have personal email on my phone, but I got rid of my work email. So I can send an email to a friend or even to one of my team members if I have something on my mind that I want to send to them, but I don't see their response back because I send it within my personal email from my work email. So I can't see what's in my work email, which has been really good for me, actually, because it's forced me to kind of keep work email at least, to my laptop. So if I want to check it, I've got to be in front of my laptop, and it just keeps me from always being on my phone, no matter where I am. Or often, like if I'm in line at the post office and I look at my email and I see something that worries me a little bit, then I'm going to think about it until I get home and worry about it. And it doesn't really help. What would have been better is to just see that email when I got home and deal with it directly.
And I find as well, and this is a bonus for being in England, right? I know that most of my email will be from Americans, and it will come in after I've finished for the day. I'm a morning person, so I will definitely get off the computer by 8 p.m. Unless I'm doing like a webinar or something. But I know that between my clocking off and then in my morning, you guys are still asleep. So there's actually not that much point in me checking email or even responding until lunchtime UK time. So what I've been able to do is change my schedule. Well, I'm happier doing it this way anyway, but I write in the mornings and go to the gym like you do, and then and then I only check my email at lunchtime. Occasionally I'll do some in the morning, but mostly now I'm getting that real creative doing time without checking email. And I know Tim Ferriss talked about this years ago about batching email, but I do think that that's where we probably have to move to at some point.
Yeah, I agree. I won't say that I've totally mastered it. I've tried it, and I kind of go in and out of phases where I do have that kind of creative hour or 2 hours in the morning where I don't check email, but then I always tend to fall back into the habit of looking at it again. So I do think it's a good technique, but it takes some work to kind of force yourself into it.
To get there, yeah. And then just with kind of other discipline and productivity, like I don't like productivity really as a word, but managing your life, is there anything else you think you do? Like, for example, I'm hardcore with the diary. I diarize for months in advance. Like this podcast is booked, till February, 4 months in advance, and I always make sure I have time in my schedule for what I need to do. Now I fail miserably regularly and overbook myself, but that schedule is so important to me, and I'm surprised when people don't use a schedule. And I also have Things app as a to-do list. So I wondered about you. What are some of the things that you use that kind of help you regulate your life?
Sure. Well, I guess from a big picture standpoint, coming back to the exercise, that's one thing I would say I do well. I think a lot of the good rules I kind of break, but I definitely exercise every day, and I treat it as though it's like something that's already on my schedule. So whenever someone asks to schedule calls or meetings or whatever during that time, I know every single day when I'm either going to spin, going for a bike ride, or going to yoga, and I absolutely do not schedule anything then. And I don't allow myself to miss that gym time, even if I feel overwhelmed with work, because I just know it's just going to compound the problem. So that's one thing I have managed to do really well, and that works better for me this way than when I was in a day job, because I guess I could get up early and exercise, and I could do it after work, but I'd rather do it as a break in the middle of the day. So that's one thing. I use my Google Calendar is ridiculous. I forget about it sometimes until someone else sees it and they're like, what the heck is that? Because I have everything on there with all different colors, and I use the task manager. So I typically have like 20 tasks for a day. And then we also use Flow for task management with my team, which is kind of like an Asana or
High Rise. Basecamp.
Yeah, one of the Basecamp. And it's funny because I hear a lot of people talking about those tools, and I don't hear as much chatter about Flow, but I think it's awesome. And it basically allows us all to assign tasks to each other. I don't use it as much for my personal tasks, but I know a lot of my team members do. So I can see kind of what's due on any given day for everyone on my team. You log in, and it's almost like a dashboard like Facebook. You can see what's new and what's been commented on. So that's helped a lot in terms of organization and making sure that things get done when they're supposed to get done. Like, I'm really big on deadlines. I believe in being on time and delivering something when you say you're going to deliver it. And I think that's part of the reason why my company's been able to be successful. So that helps us do that.
Yeah, I just don't see how disorganized people even manage like to run the stuff. But when you run your own business, you're juggling so many things. Like, I just don't know how it happens. Okay, so I was just like, there's so much we could talk about. I'm trying to think what's most useful for people. Let's just briefly talk about our business models right now, like as in what are our multiple streams of income. So, I have, and we can go through them slowly. So I have a blog where I sell products, and those products I still have a few video courses left, but I'm moving away from video courses, which is interesting. Let's talk about them one at a time. So are you doing video courses? Because we both started off doing courses, didn't we?
Yes, I do have courses and ebooks on alexisgrant.com, but I don't have any video courses. And video is kind of on my someday list. I would love to do it. I think it sounds fun, but I know that my big skill is with writing, and for now that works for me. And I just feel like in terms of prioritizing, I tend to try to do way too many things, and so video is kind of, I've pushed it to the side for now.
So you still have audio courses and PDF style courses?
I don't have audio. It's all written. So I have ebooks, which are basically PDFs or Kindle version, and I have a couple of courses that they're basically email-based courses. So you get an email a day for 4 weeks or however long the course is. And there's some live interactive components to that as well. But the main piece of it is email and written.
And an example of that would be?
My Twitter course. So it's called Become a Twitter Power User. It teaches you how to make the right types of relationships on Twitter and be proactive about using the network strategically rather than just kind of being on there. So yeah, you sign up, you get one email every single day. And the idea is it's like broken into bite-sized chunks so that there's little tasks you can do every day that will help you grow your network rather than feeling overwhelmed by it, which is how a lot of people feel when they first get on the network.
Okay, so that's kind of those. And then the other thing from the blog is I don't take advertising, but I have sponsorship and I have affiliate. So sponsorship is like my podcast is sponsored, and then affiliates for things like Scrivener course, Learn Scrivener Fast, and Aweber, I'm an affiliate. So those are two kind of income streams from the blog. Do you do those as well?
I do them a little bit on my own blog, but we do it a lot more on the Right Life. So you mentioned earlier, the Right Life is a website for writers. It's our own brand. It's we launched it about 15 months ago. So it's my baby, but my team helps to run it. So I don't do all of the day-to-day legwork on the site. I have a team that is helping with it. And I make that clear because I don't want people to think I'm a total superstar in terms of what I'm actually able to accomplish. But we do a lot more affiliate sales and strict advertising on the Right Life. I don't really do it on my site, mostly because I do use affiliate links and I do make a little bit of money on my site, but it's not a lot because I don't have massive traffic on alexisgrant.com. I make a good amount of revenue from my ebooks and courses, but I guess I have I would say a very high quality readership, but it's not a massive readership. And a lot of times to make money on advertising or affiliate sales, you have to have a much bigger following.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I've had bigger affiliate payments through doing joint webinars. Do you use a webinar model?
Yes, I have done that before. I've done joint webinars where I've had someone else come in front of my audience and then they've sold a relevant, useful product and I get an affiliate cut, and I've made good money doing that. But that's kind of on a one-off basis. And I went for about a year hosting a webinar every single month of my own webinar where I kind of share information or go over a topic like, how to place guest posts around the web, or I'm trying to think of another example, but you can see my webinars and they're all free. on my website. And anyone who wants, if you can't find them, just let me know, because I don't think they're very prominent right now. But anyways, I did that for about a year because I wanted to experiment with having my own webinars and see whether I could grow my email list that way. And I did find it to be effective for growing an email list, and even better for turning people who are sort of passive readers into really loyal fans, because they got to know me better. They saw that I really knew what I was talking about. They appreciated being able to ask me questions and interact one-on-one. But I also found it to be really time consuming. And it takes a lot of preparation to put on a good webinar. And then in addition to that, the promotion aspect. So figuring out, okay, I need a landing page. I need, when do the emails have to go out? And what am I going to do with the emails once? So there was just a lot to do around the webinars rather than just kind of giving them. So, I kind of gave that up a few months ago. And I think it was a good experience for me, and I benefited from it, but it's not some place where I want to spend all my time at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. And then I am a professional speaker, so I get speaking income. I do very, very little consulting these days. I do some one-on-ones, but very little. Do you do speaking or consulting, or is it client work that you mentioned is your big earner?
Client work's a big earner. I do a little bit of speaking here and there, but I don't seek it out. I'll do it if someone asks me. And I have people do ask me, sometimes do paid speaking gigs, sometimes non-paid. For example, actually, after this call, I have a call with a group of students. So, those kinds of things I make myself available for. But yeah, speaking is not a big chunk at all of what I earn. And it's certainly not a regular piece of revenue.
And so basically your client work, as you said, you do content for corporate clients?
They're not really corporate. They're more like small businesses and startups. So we run a number of blogs, and I can give some examples. A lot of people know that I run the Brazen Life blog, so Brazen Careerists blog, mostly because I kind of started out doing that as a freelancer and transitioned into having my team help more with it. So I'm a little bit of a public face for that particular blog. But for the other blogs that we manage, I'm not a public face, but my team runs all the content behind the site. And sometimes these are smaller sites that have, say, like if we were doing it for a startup, they might just have 2 posts a month, but often they're much bigger sites that would publish, say, 8 pieces of content every single week. So it's recruiting the writers, getting all the content in there, optimizing it, publishing it, everything from beginning to end. And that's kind of the direction that I want to go in more in terms of the client work. It's almost like an outsourced newsroom, and my background is in journalism. So I love the especially the clients where we're running like high volume sites. I think that's really fun. So we've had particular luck with people who have already grown a bit of a site, but then they just kind of either don't want to do it anymore, or they want to focus on the business side of the site, and we do the content. So that's kind of where our sweet spot is at the moment.
Yeah. And then for me, the big change in my business model obviously is fiction, which, the percentage of my income from fiction is growing the more books I write, which kind of makes sense. And the more I expand my voice and all that. And so I wanted to ask about your more creative side, because that is what you're doing is creative, but I mean, when we met, you were writing a memoir about your year in Africa as your solo year in Africa, and you had sent that out to an agent, and then that was probably 4 years ago now, and I wondered, what is happening with that, and what are you planning to do with that other side of your writing?
Sure. So I do feel like even without the travel memoir, I do feel like I still do creative writing. So I guess blogger on the web. I have my own blog where I still write regularly, and I write ebooks for my own site. I'm helping to write an ebook for the Right Life. So there is a lot of writing in there, even though I'm doing a lot of managing as well. But I actually just picked up my travel memoir again, and this was almost 2 years I had put it aside because, like you mentioned, my agent could not sell it. And I just felt frustrated with it, and I was sick of it, to be honest. And I wanted to self-publish at that time, but I couldn't bear the thought of revising it again to get it to the point where it needed to be. And I didn't want to put it out there until it was as ready as it needed to be. So I just put it aside for a while, and I've just picked it back up, mostly because I kind of ran into an editor that has published her own memoir and been very successful, and she was looking to take on a couple of like basically book doctoring clients. And so I hired her. And I'm also at a point now where like before it seemed like a big leap to pay someone, a couple $1,000s to help me book doctor my manuscript. Now my client business basically subsidizes some projects like that, with knowing that like it will boost my brand and help me bring in revenue in other ways. In general, I'm not expecting the travel memoir to be something that boosts our bottom line significantly or at all. But it's kind of a project that I'm really excited to get out there. So what am I going to do with it? I'm probably going to self-publish it. But I want to do something cool, and I'm not sure exactly what it is yet, because I have a lot of photos and videos that are a really fun complement to it. So it might be as simple as just building out a simple website where people can see the accompanying multimedia material. I might use a new digital platform to publish it. I've been thinking through those options, but we'll see. And it depends. It does depend partly on like how much time I want to spend on something that I don't think is going to bring me a relatively big amount of revenue.
It's funny though, isn't it? I feel like when I met you, I was, online. That's who I met. I actually met the girl who'd come back from Africa and was writing a memoir, and you were going to these retreats and everything. So I think also for that book, I feel about that book that I want to read it as somebody who, and there will be other people in your audience who heard you talk about this for a couple of years probably, and then stopped talking about it. And I think that it almost completes a journey, because of course now you're married, which is something that's changed over 5 years, as am I, although I was married when we met. But that is part of your life before all of that, so it's almost like a full circle thing, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, for sure.
Personal project.
Yeah, exactly. And this business journey has changed how I think about the manuscript too, and what I want to do with it. At first I was set on traditional publishing, and if that option came along, I might still want to do it. But at this point I see a lot. I see the value in self-publishing it, whereas I think at the beginning I didn't. So yeah, a lot has changed in terms of my platform and how I share information with the world, I think.
Yeah. So one of the things, I think one of the themes here is that kind of reinvention aspect of things. And like you've shared, I did the webinar thing and I let that go, and you may never have picked up the memoir again. I'm sure there's other things, like the Creative Pen was my third blog. There were 2 before that. Since then I've started another one which I've left by the wayside. I've switched direction. So this reinvention thing and almost rebranding of yourself, I think some people see it as kind of bravery, and whereas some people would say, oh, you failed with your webinars, and I failed with my other blogs. How do you interpret that sense of, or do you ever see failure, or do you have any failures, or do you just see things as reinvention?
I guess in the moment I feel failure about things, and I actually wrote a blog post about how I felt a serious failure when my agent couldn't sell my travel memoir. But besides that, I treat a lot of things like experiments. I know going in that it might not work. And I actually thought you were going to ask me, like, can I share some of those failures? And I was thinking, like, I can't even think of any of them. And I know I have plenty, but I kind of just let it go. Like, it doesn't work, and I move on to the next thing. But I do it while having a bit of a safety net. So I have built a client business. And even at the beginning, I had a section of my revenue that I knew was coming in, and then you can kind of experiment on the side. So it's often a lot of my experiments will happen with the Right Life or the alexisgrant.com. And this is, I think, one of my failures to date is I do have a lot of different projects going on. And I think if I focus on one of them instead of 3 or 4 big things, I would be doing much better with that one thing, but I'm not quite ready to give up all these other things yet. So, I guess my point was going to be that, like, when I look at the things that I've done on alexisgrant.com that haven't worked, or on the Right Life that haven't worked, or whatever, I know that I'm putting my time and really money, because I'm not making money in other ways into those projects, but it's okay with me.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. Like, I don't feel I have failure. I just have kind of experience, you know. I mean, and some of the big, you know, massive things that cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, were before this life. I feel like, well, you know, I had a scuba diving business with a blooming boat, you know, and I had property. I've had a lot of property, which has lost me a lot of money. And you know, I think the internet life we have, the risk is so small because our overheads are so small. You know, what do we have here? We have two computers and a you know, webcam, and Skype's free.
Exactly. And it's about your attitude too. I mean, if you talk about things as though you totally failed on something, I mean, then other people are going to think you failed too. If you look at the Right Life, I just did an income report for the Right Life. You could definitely have skewed that as a failure, because I've been putting money into this site for the last 15 months, and it's starting to make money now, but it hasn't made a lot yet. And I believe that it will, which is why I continue to invest in it. Both mentally and financially, but you could have easily skewed that as a failure. So I think it is about how you look at things, and yeah, you have to know when to let things go, but you also have to know when to kind of stick with something.
Yeah, definitely. And that experimental attitude and that positive attitude, I think entrepreneurs do, you know, they often use the word pivot, which you could, you know, again, it's a reinterpretation. This isn't working, I'm going to pivot.
Right.
So that's the kind of, like you're saying, the positive reframing of what others may perceive as failure.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I would say that that's honest though. Like I don't feel like those things are failures. I mean, I think you could like tell yourself, okay, I've got to frame this as a success so people don't see it as a failure. And I think you can see through that when people do that online. It's really about trusting yourself to know that you can try lots of different things, and some of them are going to work and some of them aren't.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things as well is discovering what you love, because we both gave up corporate jobs because we weren't in love with them, and we both, I find all the time now, I mean, when you start, you have to say yes to everything, right? Because you don't have what's going on. And now I'm sure you do too, you have to say no a lot. You have to say no to opportunities because so many come your way. So I'm at this point of kind of saying, well, what do I love? And how can I do more of that? And then how can I kind of get rid of the stuff I don't love? Is that the type of thing you're going through as well?
Oh yeah, it's a constant reevaluation too. I am terrible at saying no, and I find I'm getting better at it, and I have to push myself to do it more and more and more. But it's hard when you're an idea person. You come up with a lot of ideas, but you know that the truth is you just can't do everything. And if I am to pursue one other idea, that means the Right Life is going to suffer, or the client side of my business will suffer. It's just there's only so much you can do, even if you systemize everything and have a great team. Like it's not even for me. It's not really about hours in the day. It's more about how many components I have in my brain. I just can't juggle so many things, and you can't focus on what needs to be focused on. So I do think I'm constantly, like I would say every week, rethinking, okay, how do I change this around? How do I reframe this? How do I get rid of something so that I can have more time to do what I really want? And what is it that I really want to do? That's often the hardest question.
Yeah, and I actually have on my wall here, I have lots of things on my wall, but one of the things says, right to live, what is living today? Because like you say about going for a bike ride with your husband this morning, too often we can go, oh, well, you know, I just no, I can't do that right now. You know, I need to do some work. But actually, we have to remember what is living. And living is sometimes, you know, heading off on a massive walk, or, you know, like going to Africa again, or, you know, doing things that don't necessarily earn us money, but are what the whole point of you and I leaving corporate was about, you know, was
Yeah, exactly.
doing this other stuff. That was something else somebody had said to me is, oh, but you could make more money if you outsourced the writing of the books. And I was like, but that's not the point. It's like, but then I wouldn't be able to say I made this.
Yeah. And you enjoy the writing.
Well, and that's the kind of the point. So do you find that, switch between what you love and what makes the money?
A little bit. I'm trying to think about.
I guess the memoir is an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely things that I do that I know that are not making me money right now, may never make me money. Like some of the things I do aren't making money now, and I'm hoping they'll make money in the future. But I mean, I think my model may change down the line too. Like right now, I am enjoying all the client work, but I do feel a little bit tethered by it. I know that when you have clients, you have to respond to them, and you're not totally free because you still are working for someone else.
Yes.
So I think in the long run, I would love to just be able to focus on my own brands and my own work. But for right now, there's a lot of good pieces to the client side. For one, it is very lucrative, but also that's where I'm learning a lot, and that's where I get ideas to write about these other things. To write ebooks. Like, what would I write about if I wasn't actually doing the work? And there are a lot of entrepreneurs who are writing about like how to run an online business who don't actually have an online business other than writing about how to have an online business. And I don't know where they get their ideas from. Like, if you're not actually doing the work and you're not really in it, I think that helps me grow and helps me. It challenges me. So I do think down the line, like that model may shift, or where I decide to put my energy or my team's energy may shift. But for now, it's good.
Well, that's what I love about being an indie author, is that freedom. Like, if you nail everything in your life that you want down to one word, and my word is freedom, that's why I don't do live webinars, because I feel like that's tying into something in public that I don't necessarily want to do, and why I don't want to be at the beck and call of a publisher or somebody who's could say, no, I want to change the ending or something like that. So I think these core values are so important to our business. But I wanted to ask you though, you mentioned about, changing things, and what do you see in the next kind of, even just while you and I have known each other, like the Kindle has gone nuts. We've seen self-publishing go from being a kind of stigmatized thing to being a very positive, business model and exciting in creativity. What do you see in the next 5 years in the online space and also for your business?
I haven't really thought much about what I see for the online space. In general, I think content marketing is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Because it's, even all the changes Google has made, they reward real quality, valuable content. So for my business, that's huge for the client side, because that's what we do. And there's just tons of people who want it. So I just think that's going to continue to be hot in the space. But in terms of self-publishing, I feel like I don't actually follow the self-publishing world, I think, as well as you do. And in some ways, I think I probably should be on top of those trends a little more, because I guess I do follow tech pretty closely in social media. But on the other hand, sometimes I feel like right now I'm in a phase where I want to get the work done, and I want to create stuff, and I'm out of the phase where I read absolutely I do read a lot still, but I don't read everything. I don't look at my Feedly anymore. I kind of read things when they come to me, but I don't spend hours reading stuff. Instead, I'm spending that time actually creating and doing the work. And I think it's easy to kind of get caught up in what's going on out there, right? Like, whereas right now I'm in a phase where I'm kind of turned inward to just do what we're good at and get it done.
And I think too, it's interesting. It doesn't matter, like this document I have here, this story, it doesn't actually matter what changes, because people will still want stories. They'll still want, your ebooks and your story, your story and your information, whatever changes. So whether, the blog stuff changes and we call it something else, or the social media changes or whatever, people still need this. So the tech side changing doesn't really make a difference, does it?
No, I totally agree. And in fact, like a lot of my ebooks, I only offer them in PDF format. And I'm going to start to offer like a Mobi and an EPUB version, because I am starting to get requests, and I think I first started publishing them when we met, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and people weren't reading it on Kindle as much. And I have gotten some requests for the last couple of ebooks that people want to be able to read them in a format that looks better on their Kindle. But generally, sometimes just going with simple and creating something high quality and delivering it in the simplest way is kind of like the biggest bang for your buck in terms of energy.
And I agree with you. Last year I think I dropped about 400 RSS feeds, and you almost stop. Is that a confidence thing? Is it when you first start out? When we were learning from all the people, and then you get to a point where you think, I've heard this all before, and now I'm ready. I'm ready to be, I guess, more of a leader in the space. Do you feel that that's been the shift?
I guess. I mean, I don't think of it as that way. I think of it as more as, okay, rather than reading about this stuff, I want to actually do it. And I do feel like a lot of the stuff is regurgitated, and I know it. And but sometimes it's a good reminder to read it, because I'm like, oh, I'm not doing this, and I should be. So it is a good reminder, and it gives you ideas. But it's more about, I think, diving in and just executing rather than thinking about executing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Although one of the thinking about executing kind of memes is a backlash against blogging in this tsunami of content, or content shock, as one author has called it, which we're also having in the book space. I was at a Frankfurt Book Fair on a panel which was, are there too many books in the world? Totally leading question about this tsunami of content. Now, you're a massive content creator, so am I. What do you feel about people who say there's too much? How do you stand out? What's going on?
Oh, if you have a voice and a personality, people are going to come to you over everyone else. I mean, the ebooks I offer, it's not like you can't get them anywhere else. You could get that information, a lot of it, you could get it for free on the web probably somewhere. But the fact that I put it together with my own experience, and it's a source that people trust, and I've built that trust by providing lots of free content and by interacting with my community over the last few years. If you can provide like really good content and infuse it with your personality, people are only going to want to get it from you. I mean, think about the bloggers that I still follow, even though I've kind of culled down my list. Even though I don't go into Feedly anymore, I now subscribe to a few blogs via email, and I read them when they come into my email because I care about the person. I do care about the content, but I care more about the person who's delivering it and how they're delivering it. So I think if you can do that, who cares if there's a tsunami of content out there? I mean, if you can provide something that people want to get from you, then it doesn't matter. Yeah,
and we talked about this before I hit record, but it seems to me that most people are not willing to put in A, the work, and B, the time. Do you think those are just the two things that?
And three, the personality. Like, people are scared of sharing themselves online for a lot of different reasons. And it is hard to get into a blogging voice where you're authentic and it sounds like you write as you talk. I think it takes some work to get there. So even people who are willing to share have to figure out how to do it in a way that appeals to other people. But yeah, I think it is, in addition to that, like you said, it's about the persistence, and it's about sticking with it over time.
Because realistically, you and I haven't done anything radically different over the last since we met. We've just created good content within the niches we work in. We've met and networked with peers and created relationships, and we've just done that like every day.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I feel like is different is I do think now that I've been living in the internet world for a few years. I do know kind of, like, if I were to launch a website, I know what the top 4 things would be to do to get it live and to promote it. And rather than trying a million things, because I've done that before, I am able to say, okay, the energy should go in these 4 places. So I think that's one benefit, is you kind of, it's not like there's a shortcut, but you can get rid of all the pieces that, it's the 80-20 rule, right? So spending most of your time on the stuff that's really going to make a difference, and after a while you kind of figure out what that difference is.
Absolutely. Now, last question before I let you go. I often, we consume things, we produce things, we're creating all the time. What's important is also feeding ourselves and continually kind of learning new things. Who are you learning from right now? What are you learning? What are you excited about that's kind of fueling your creative work?
Well, I definitely one way that I surround myself by other people who are doing what I'm doing is I do Skype regularly with a number of people who kind of live and work in this space, who are also sort of making a living online, because I find that they get it and they want to talk about open rates and subject lines and like little things that if you saw your neighbor, they're probably not going to want to talk to you about. So that's one thing that has worked for me is I make time to, it's almost like if you were in an office, you would talk to your coworker about what you're working on. And if you don't have that, you have to create that structure for yourself. So that's one thing that's worked for me. I also have an office now outside of my home, which I didn't have. I just got it like six months ago. So I didn't have it for the first almost 3 years of full-time self-employment. I worked out of my house, and I'm doing that right now actually. So I still do it sometimes, but having an office has been really good for me in terms of getting out of the house and feeling energized and seeing people and talking to people. There's a lot of startups who are based in the office space that I'm in, and so I get to see what they're working on, and so that has helped as well.
That's fantastic. Right, so if people want to know more about you, where should they go?
AlexisGrant.com. I'm always on Twitter at Alexis Grant. And The Right Life, it's therightlife.com, and Right is spelled WRITE.
I hope my audience know that.
You always say Penn with a double N, and I feel like that's a really good reminder. So
good point. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for your time, Lexi. That was great.
Sure. Thank you.